Hello and welcome to Strategic Compass. Today I'm very happy we are joined by Dr. Peter Hänseler'e, who is a Moscow-based geopolitical analyst. He's at the same time an expert on international law and frequent writer with extremely insightful analysis on what is happening across the world in geopolitical terms. Peter, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Well, that's my pleasure. Thank you very much. Let's get right now, if you like. Let's do what they call a tour d'horizon, you know, and then let's take more than one subject, but with similar way to dive into the nitty-gritty details of each and every subject. I think it would be a good idea to start with the war in Ukraine. What's happening in Ukraine war lately, particularly after the Ukrainian attack on the Russian strategic bombers across the country, and then the Russian response has been quite noticeable. And it also seems that the West, on the one hand, particularly the Europeans, Germany, France, and Britain, want to carry on with the fight against Russia to the last Ukrainians, as we all say right from the beginning. But at the same time, it seems that the West has been running out of steam in every sense. And the latest is that they want to change Zelensky with somebody else. Now, what is your take on all this? Please.
Yeah, I think the problem is that I do not further believe that there will be a settlement where the United States will be involved. The problem is that the whole West is not reliable anymore. You can agree with the West anything you want, and they will never live up to their agreements they signed or they agreed upon decades along. The root cause of this conflict is the NATO Eastern expansion, where the famous James Baker said the famous words, not 1 inch eastwards expansion. He told that to Mr. Gorbachev. They moved about, I think, 1,500 kilometers to the east. The red line was always described by Russia and specifically by Mr. Putin as Georgia and the Ukraine. Georgia, we remember, attacked Russia. That failed miserably. And then we had the Maidan coup. That means it is a complete falsehood to say that the war started in 2022. It started at the latest in 2014. And Mr. Trump, that was one of his big campaign promises. He wanted to end the war within 24 hours. We have, I think, 200, more than 200 days later. There is no deal because there is no deal which is in the interest of the United States. The goal of the United States is to weaken Russia. That means close to this war would strengthen Russia at the end of the day, and therefore I do not believe in it. And what will Russia do? Russia does what they do well. They will finish the war, and they will finish the war on the battlefield, and there will be, at the end of the day, there will be a capitulation. And the conditions under which Ukraine will live thereafter will be dictated by Moscow. And that is, the West will go crazy about that, but I don't see anything what they can do about it. Because everything the West did, that was the sanctions, didn't help. If you look at economical sanctions, they failed miserably. Basically put the EU, especially Germany, in dire straits. And the Russian economy is growing. The second consequence is it led to a fast rise of BRICS. And BRICS is an organization which is so important. You can always see what is not reported or underreported in the Western media. And you know, I told my son when he was very young, I said, you know, everything what's important in the world is not in the newspapers.
Not in the mainstream Western newspapers, definitely, or media channels.
I don't consider what I do newspapers, and our interview is not a media where a majority of the people listen to. Otherwise, the world would look different, most probably much better. But you know, we are fighting our fight, and at the end of the day, we will, I think, will prevail, because more and more people start to doubt the media. I'm sure we will touch this issue on a later stage of this interview. Now, let's go back to Ukraine. The situation is so overwhelming in Russia's favor now that there are front sectors where there are basically that there's basically no Ukrainian defense anymore. The death toll on the Ukrainian side, you know, I don't know the correct figure. Nobody knows the correct figure, but it looks like it's much more than 1 million. And they don't have people anymore. That's why they round up young people. They hunt them like animals in the street. That comes out, and I think that is another fact which you cannot paint over anymore, even in the West. Then we have the whole situation with the corruption courts and these scandals. Now it looks like the Brits and maybe the Americans, they want to exchange Mr. Zelensky. Then comes the question, yeah, with whom? The only candidate which sticks out like a sore thumb is Mr. Zaluzhny, but that will not change anything. I do not think that it will bring any betterment for the Ukrainian people. I have contacts. In Ukraine, and already 1.5 years ago. They tell me that is relatively hard to judge, but a large portion of the population already 1.5 years ago would have been in agreement to waive the rights to the four regions plus Great Crimea in order to get peace. You know, people do not understand the whole conflict, because in Russia there are about 14 million Ukrainians. Whenever I have a dinner and a family dinner with friends or whatever, the husband or the wife is Ukrainian. You know, this is basically a civil war, which makes this conflict even worse from an emotional standpoint of view. But Russia will decide this on the battlefield, And you don't read anymore a lot of front reporting in the Western media for the simple reason that there is, yeah, they cannot, and you better stay silent, you know, if the situation is so catastrophic. This is how I see it, and you know, the conditions are relatively clear. The conditions of the Russians have not changed in the past 3 years.
Now, on the question of Zelensky to be replaced by somebody, perhaps the current Ukrainian ambassador to the United Kingdom, who used to be the chief of staff of the Ukrainian armed forces, Zaluzhny. Now, the two questions basically appear to be intriguing. One is, why do they want to get rid of Zelensky? Is it, you know, do they think that if they replace Zelensky with somebody else, then there may be more enthusiasm among the Ukrainian people to carry on with the fight against Russia? Or Zelensky has become a bit too hard nut case that is not easy to convince into a peace treaty or something. So if they can replace him with somebody else, he may be more amenable to a peace negotiation. That's one. You know, and the other, how would they do it? What if Zelensky basically persists and says, you know, I'm not going anywhere because he's got his hardcore people around himself? Are they going to get him killed? Because Zelensky is not, he's not, you can easily argue he's not legitimate the president now. How will they install somebody else legitimately again? So it's not easy to understand, you know, to basically to break down the puzzle, if you like.
Yes, you know, the first fact is that he doesn't have a legal basis anymore being president. That is one of the biggest issues for the Russians. If there is an agreement, who will sign it? And as a lawyer, I can tell you, I would also be very concerned about that. Mr. Zelensky has stolen so much money. That means it would be extremely easy to blame it on him and to basically arrest him. That would not be a problem, because, you know, Mr. Zelensky doesn't run this country. Mr. Zelensky was brought into the job because one of the richest oligarchs put him into the job, and at the end of the day, he's a marionette of the Brits and of the Americans. We should, you know, this has nothing to do. And also Mr. Zaluzhny, he is not, he will not have his own power. He's just, you know, he's an underling of the Western powers. And yes, they can exchange him tomorrow. I'm sure that, you know, I think his security force is not, these are not Ukrainian people. Huh? His security detail consists of Brits. That means he's protected by British people. Not even, he doesn't even trust his own people. It's absolutely, it's an incredible situation. And it is, if I talk to my contacts in Ukraine, Zaluzhny is definitely more popular than Zelensky, but he's also not popular. People don't want to die, because everybody with a brain cell in the Ukraine knows that this war is lost, that every husband or every son which will go to the front will not return. This is exactly the situation we have. We have a highly trained, efficient Russian army on the one side, and all the good people the good soldiers, and the Ukrainians are and were good soldiers. Do not misunderstand me. These are not people I want to have as an enemy. But most of them are dead.
Well, the Ukrainians fought extremely well during the Second World War, didn't they?
Yeah, they said very young people and very old people in our age, basically, they sent to the front, and the training I heard of 10 and 14 days. And then you go after against people, and I know soldiers, and I have interviewed soldiers here in Moscow there at the front for the last 2.5 years, and have 2.5 years front experience. Then you have the boys and the old men on the other side. This is slaughter. This has nothing to do with warfare. I simply do not know, and I'm questioning that. I had a discussion yesterday about, why would the Brits or the Americans would exchange Zelensky. At the end of the day, they will take Zelensky out. Zelensky will be killed. There will be an accident, there will be something, because this person is a drug addict, and he knows too much. He knows so much on the West. That is a risk. If I were a Brit or if I were an American, if he's not useful to us anymore, we'll take him out. That is how life is. That is the reality there. He has, in my opinion, he has absolutely no interest. He has no chance to survive this, also physically not.
Okay. So basically, they can take him out and bring Zaluzny to install in his place. But in terms of legality, I mean, how would you comment on that? There's going to be no election, nothing. Somebody out and somebody else in. Is this the way they're gonna do it?
Yes, this is why it doesn't make sense. Now, if I look from I put on my shoes and the hats of the Brits and the US, what would I do? Does that improve my situation if I exchange Zelensky now? No. The thing is, in order to really improve the situation, you would have to have, clean, international monitored elections.
Yep.
And then I have no idea who will be elected, because people are really frustrated. Can you imagine, what happened to the people there in the past 3 years? This is a disaster. That's why maybe the pressure comes from the people, and it's not coming from the Brits or for the Americans, because I do not see. Also, if I think and analyze the whole thing in favor of the interests of the United States or of Great Britain, I do not see an advantage. I do not think that this will change the motivation of the Ukrainian people to fight. People, they don't want to fight anymore, because this is not a fight, this is a slaughterhouse.
Well, the other thing, the other side of the coin, in the collective West, we have the United States led by Trump administration, which doesn't seem to have a clear-cut policy as to what to do with Ukraine war. Apart from the initial, utterances by Trump that there would be no war if he had been the president, or he would just, make a few phone calls to stop the war, but nothing of that sort came about. But all in all, the United States under Trump doesn't seem to be in the forefront of the war. They don't want to basically get involved, certainly not to the same extent as the Biden administration, or not to the same extent as the Europeans appear to be willing to. But on the question of the Europeans, particularly, I mean, an area, a political landscape you are very knowledgeable about, that is, for instance, the Germans. When I hear the German argument that the Russians, if they were ever successful in Ukraine, they were going to, they would basically invade and occupy the whole of Europe, and everyone would have to learn Russian. I mean, so outlandish and incredible. I can't believe in what I hear from the German people, German experts. Sometimes Russia has all the resources and huge lands, 20 times that of Turkey. Turkey being the largest country in Europe, and Russian lands, you know, in terms of resources, in terms of whatever else you want to do. Also in terms of arable land, is the biggest in the world, and its population is only 140 million. How would the German mind think that Russia is going to basically subdue the whole of Eastern, Central, and Western Europe? How do you read into the German mind and also the European mind in general?
Yes, you know, this is, you know, Mr. Merz, you know, they said, you know, the Germans basically say Russia will always be our enemy. That's the newest one. This is absolutely crazy. Russia has 11 time zones. Russia wants to be friends with Europe because it's a European country. The culture, it's European. They have 11 time zones. You need more. You cannot imagine, you know, the difficulty the Russians have to basically hold this huge thing together with 100 peoples, 11 time zones, and only 147 million people. They have enough trouble with that kind of size. And you know, the Germans, you know, the Germans showed how successful they were to conquer countries and you know, to control countries where the population doesn't want to be controlled by the Germans. And you know, there's absolutely no chance in hell that that the Russians have this intention. Now, why are the Germans saying that? That means you go to back to Mr. Merz. Mr. Merz is a gopher, a little boy from BlackRock, and he has been, you know, he has been bought and paid for many years ago, and that's the deep state. And now, you know, when people talk about the deep state, and that was a theory, conspiracy theory, when I wrote about that 2 years ago, and now you can watch it on ABC, CNBC, CNN. People are aware of that, and you know, the deep state is not a phenomenon which is new. In his last speech, Ike Eisenhower talked about that in 1959, the military-industrial complex. That's all together and has different labels and names. But the deep state is not only active in the United States, but you know, more or less everywhere in the world. Mr. Merz and Mr. Starmer and Mr. Macron and all these people are deep state boys. And Mr. Trump was the anti-deep state man. I think that's why he was elected. But he's constantly under pressure from these groups. The executive team he may has exchanged to a certain extent, but the people in the background, the people with the money, the people with the power, they're still there, and that's I doubt that you and I will be alive as long as, you know, as long as we are alive, the deep state, or, you know, will be. That is a very difficult thing. Now, if I look at Mr. Trump's strategy, Mr. Trump has too many irons in the fire. He wanted to achieve too much too quickly. And he wanted, that's the problem with the hegemon, he wanted to basically dictate everybody what will happen. And he thought that he could basically dictate the Russians the terms. That failed. He basically he failed in the Middle East. He failed now with Iran. He has a mess with the Israeli partners. He's involved in a genocide. It's really and then he has problems at home. He has problems with the central bank. He has problems. With the economy. He has problems with all his tariffs. Now he was successful with Mrs. von der Leyen, who is also a deep state lady who has not been elected. They basically folded, and the consequence will be that the EU, is, from an economical standpoint of view, it's a catastrophe. And Mr. Trump does not understand how to talk. You know, you can talk to a Brit, or you can talk to a German or a French guy in one way, but that doesn't work with a Russian, that doesn't work with a Chinese, that doesn't work with an Indian, and I also think it doesn't work with a Turkish guy. You know, it's just weird. They're different. You know, you cannot bully. You cannot bully any of these countries into submission. And I think I'm always flabbergasted. I don't know how many million the Russians live in the United States. That means he would have many people whom he could ask. You know, how do I get a deal with a Russian guy? How do I get a deal with the Chinese? But they always think that's so stupid. The Americans always think that, you know, you talk to anybody in the world like you talk to the used car salesman around the corner in Manhattan. That doesn't work. It's Russia is now, the United States are now overextended. You know, if you look at the RAND Corporation study of extending Russia, that is exactly now to the United States. And at the end of the day, this is dangerous for all of us, you know, because I think the US and Mr. Trump has now cornered himself into the corner, and the reaction will be very aggressive. And we saw, you know, how he changed his stance now within a few days towards Russia. You know, I give them
also towards Chinese and others.
Days, and now he gives them 12 days, and he applies the same to China, and they will not move. That's absolutely, you know, I know Russia for 28 years. You put the Russian under pressure, no result, zero result. It's just the wrong way to do it. Yes, and that's why I'm not surprised it worked with the EU. And now, you know, interestingly, they have levied taxes of 50% against Brazil. That was yesterday or the day before yesterday. He says it's because of the ex-president Bolsonaro. That's not true. That's because of BRICS. You know, the Americans start to understand the power of BRICS, and that's why they're attacking BRICS. They're attacking everything. They're attacking everything. It's dangerous, but at the end of the day, useless.
Well, just I mean, one point you made is extremely important. I think I'll just repeat it. We are talking about a declining power, that is the United States, with huge military resources. and a deep state that is running this declining power with enormous ambitions across the world. So it's a very dangerous, how shall I say, outing. They can start wars here, they can provoke wars there, they can do all sorts of, provocations here and there. So it's a very dangerous situation, as the world is certainly evolving into a multipolar world, a multipolar order from unipolarity. So that's a very, it is basically full of dangers, but hopefully even the United States deep states will have to understand that they cannot bully everybody at the same time. Just a little, a short question, maybe a short comment. Now the major European countries are run by, major European countries are run by people like Merz, Emmanuel Macron, and Starmer, who are all, of the same sort of people. Russia is our enemy. Russia will have to basically carry on fighting the Russians, and without a clear-cut cause and all that. Now, but in all these countries, in Germany, for instance, the Alternative Party, in France, the Le Pen movement, Rassemblement National, and in Britain, the UK Reform Party, they are all coming up quite. What would you say about that? For instance, in the case of Germany, how do you see that?
Yeah, the problem in Germany is a deep one. They have problems with immigration. That means if you're an immigrant and you don't want to work, you live better than a German who has no job. That's a complete simplification of the situation, but we don't have time to go into the details. That is a huge problem in Germany, also with regard to the crime rate of certain groups of foreigners. And then you have the great problem. The great problem is the economical situation. With Mr. Habeck, the former economic, they have no clue what they were doing. And then you have this religious following of the green policy. And on top of it, also the big companies, the car manufacturers also made mistakes. It's a combination of a lot of things. Then Germany was the export world champion. And the basis of that feat, it's an incredible feat, was cheap energy from Russia. And, the Americans basically blew up a Nord Stream pipeline. And yes, this combination put Germany into an economical crisis. And now people start to disagree. And I think if we had elections today, AfD would win the elections. Because Mr. Merz lied to the people with regard. He said, we're going to save money. And, a few days afterwards, he said, we're gonna raise $1 trillion dollars specifically to build up the military. And his goal is the strongest military force in Europe. If you compare that to the Turkish army, how they want to do it, it's absolutely impossible. But they will be able to spend the money. You know, that is the politicians, that they are always very successful. And you know, if you look at German history, the German people are not able to put a stop in it. You know, if you look at Nazi Germany, people from the beginning, you know, the Nazis never had over 50% of the votes. They had, I think, 31 or 32, and then, you know, they engineered that very smartly in order to get to power. But they failed over the 12 years to change something. And the Germans are extremely passive about that. And, you know, I'm Swiss. That means, you know, we speak the same language. We have 4 languages in Switzerland, but the larger part of Switzerland, we speak a dialect of German. But we are functioning totally different. And it is, for me, a surprise that these people never learn. Because what Mr. Merz does now, he's basically steering Germany into the abyss. If he wants to go, you know, if he wants to go to war against Russia, this is so outlandishly stupid. Yeah, then Germany will not. I heard that from a commentator in Moscow. Germany will no longer exist if they're attacked again by Russia. Last time, the Russians lost 27 million people.
Now, shall we move on to the what Israel has been committing, basically, in Gaza? That is, all intents and purposes, a genocide. Initially, the genocidal intent was there, but some people were sort of refraining from the use of genocide for what the Israeli government was committing. Now, let's deal with the political side of it. You know, Israel doesn't listen to anybody in terms of what they want to do. You know, committing the genocide and all that. They don't listen to the American government so much either. It is a situation by which you can say whether the dog wags its tail or the other way around in terms of the relations between Israel and the United States. You know, but the latest is that the Israelis, under heavy criticism by the people of Europe and the United States, not by the political elite, not by the administrations, but certainly by the by pressure by the people, European people as well as American people. This has never happened since the establishment of Israel, you know, in 1984, 48. Sorry. Now, what are your comments on that? You know, about what Israel is doing, and in terms of the political fallout for world geopolitics. For instance, as the genocide became clear-cut, and it certainly you know, led to a point where the European and the Americans could no longer talk about the moral high ground in terms of their international relations.
Yes, it's genocide. It's a repeat of the German Nazis did to 6 million Jews, to gypsies, to 15 million Russians. Nobody knows that. Nobody talks about that. And we're just writing an article on the parallels, how, you know, how they implement this genocide is basically from the manual of the Nazis in the Second World War, and that makes the whole thing so undigestible. It is, you know, how they structure it, that nobody can, can criticize them. This is, people do not understand the difference between the Jews. The Jews, it's a religion. It's like the Muslims or the Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the Zionists. The Zionists, they are ruling Israel. And the Zionists is a political movement. It has nothing to do with Judaism. And are there Jewish Zionists? Yes. And if you look at it, it's about 50% or maybe even more of the Zionists are Jews. But do you remember when the Second World War ended? Did we hate the Nazis because they were Nazis or because they were Christians? Because 99.9%, most probably, of all the Nazis were Christians. That means you didn't hate them for their religion. You hated them for what they did and to what political movement they were part of. And that is how you have to deal with this issue. Because whenever there was criticism, and that is since 1948, as you say, since 1948, if you criticized Israel, you're an anti-Semite. And apart from the fact that Semites, all Arabs are also Semites, that means from a semantic standpoint of view, it's even wrong. But,
well, they are brothers and sisters, yes.
Yes. But at the end of the day, I think it's important that people in the West understand that if you criticize the Zionist Israel, you are not an anti-Semite. And what I am really embarrassed is that even Switzerland is, the official Switzerland is supporting Israel. And then you come with the thing, they are able to defend themselves. It's like Mr. Höss in Auschwitz defended himself against the Jews there. This is absolutely ridiculous. And we are pushing this. And there is a growing level of discussion, and I'm so happy you bring it up, and you have the courage to bring it up. Also from Turkey, this is what we have to do. We have to inform the people what is going on. And the really bad thing is that the Western media, they know what's going on, and I hear they're paid off. You get a phone call if you write against Israel, they will say, your advertisement budget will lower. That means the power of Zionism is huge, and it's international. And if you look at the U.S. Congress, 6% of the members of the U.S. Congress are Jewish. But since 1948, anything they decide is pro-Israel. That means 88% of the Zionists in the U.S. Congress are non-Jewish. I think that's an important thing. And about the other thing is, they ride this wave. They ride this wave in a thing that we are the victims, and we are the chosen people, and we are better than anything else. And this is an educational process we have to go through, and then things will change, but that will take time. I wrote in the article, maybe a little footnote, how I grew up. I'm born 1964. I grew up in Switzerland. The Israelis were the heroes, and the Palestinians were the terrorists. That is what I heard at home. That is what I heard in the church. That is what I heard at school. That is what I heard at university. That is what I heard as a young lawyer. And I think, most people in the West heard that.
Yeah. Well, as you said, this was what it was across the Western world about the description of the Israelis, the victims, that have been attacked. They are under constant attack by terrorists, the Palestinians and the Arabs, all of them. Now it is exactly the opposite across the world, including the collective West. So it's not going to be easy in political terms and geopolitical terms for Israel, particularly at a time when unipolarity is coming to an abrupt end, and when the collective West, and particularly the United States, is not going to be able to back up Israel anytime, every time. As you actually raised in one of your articles after the 12 days war between Israel and Iran, Israel wasn't as successful as the Western media basically hyped up about it. And Israel that has not fought a proper war with any state actor since 1973, failed to get what it wanted with regard to Iran. Would you like to say a few things about that situation? So Israel, on the one hand, has been acting like the bully of the Middle East, destabilizing large, sizable countries like Syria, or the United States is doing the dirty job for Israel. But at the same time, it seems that both Israel and the United States are losing fast. They are running out of their steam.
Yes.
And this certainly manifested itself in the 12 days war with Iran.
Yes, at the end of the day, you have to look at the goal of the Zionists. The goal of the Zionists is Greater Israel. And you read my last article, what is Greater Israel? There was also a conspiracy theory, and they always said, the Israelis always talked from the river to the sea, and said, the river is the Jordan. But it's basically, it's from Alexandria, that means from the Nile to the Euphrates. It is, there are different kind of maps, but definitely Jordan will not exist anymore. Syria will not exist anymore. The Lebanon will not exist anymore. Half of Iraq will not exist anymore. A part of Iran will not exist anymore. And even half of Turkey will not exist anymore. And Saudi Arabia will not exist anymore. That's their plan. This is the plan. It's not, saving Israel from the terrorists. And at the end of the day, this is also the reason why there is so much money involved. Because, you can buy Turkey, or you can steal it. If you steal it, this will be the richest region in the world. And they want to basically steal it and kill everybody who's against it. Just that you keep that in mind. This is the plan. Now, the United States, they could stop the genocide. They could stop the whole problem in the Middle East with one phone call. Just don't deliver the weapons anymore. Israel, I had sources, credible sources, who said that Tel Aviv is, destroyed to 40%. And they ran out of rockets. The Israelis ran out of rockets.
Yeah, air defense.
In these 12 days, they shot out as many rockets as the US can produce in 2 years. That was a complete failure. Did they hit Iran? Yes. Did they create damage? Yes. Did they obliterate Iran? Not at all. The Iranis have been preparing for this very case for decades now. They have an incredible amount of rockets, which are of highest technological level. They have higher technology than the Americans. People in the West are not aware of that. And I was I called the stopping by Iranians of the counterattack as a mistake, as a military mistake. And it's clear, I believe, that they were influenced by the Russians and by the Chinese, because the Chinese, they don't want to have a war in Iran because of their interests with regard to natural gas and oil. It's one of the largest suppliers, Iran. And then the north-south corridor for the Russians. And on top of it, the Russians, who would sooner or later have to help with military help, whether it's weapons or soldiers, I don't know. But at the end of the day, they have no interest because they have their own war in the Ukraine. They want to finish first. That is basically, you know, in a nutshell, thing. I'm a little bit pressed on time.
Well, thank you very much. You know, it's in a nutshell, but
yes, it is in a nutshell.
Hopefully, we are going to get together again.
With great pleasure, because, you know, I spent too much time in the first few questions, because, you know, it's sometimes necessary to write longer articles and to talk a little bit longer, because you know, your viewers, many of them are from the West. They need a certain level of information in order to form their own opinion. Definitely.
There's no question about it. Peter, thank you very much, and I hope to see you somewhere again, or certainly online in the weeks and months ahead. And
thank you very much for the invitation. It was a great honor to appear.
Well,
with you.
The honor is mine, and thank you again, and hope to see you perhaps somewhere in Moscow in one of the experts gathering.
Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Thank you.
Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye for now.